What's good, Greg? All right, D, I'm gonna have you put the ball on your side.
What am I supposed to be doing? Because I can't just be weird up here.
Get a little bit closer to you, stay right there.
Hold on. Okay. Rossi jersey. Oh!
I think the cool thing about the jersey itself is that the uniform is the story, right? We didn't get the uniform and then try to make a story around it. We knew the story around the X and the X Factor in our fans. We knew the story around the Valley Gradient and what that means locally, what it means because of our sunsets, because they don't exist anywhere else, and what it means because of the alignment with suns. And really it's reflective of the design period happening at the peak of, the Suns and Mercury going to the finals, and the popularity of the Valley jersey, and us playing double headers, and the Suns sitting courtside at our games. So we built the story into the uniform. Now we had to articulate it more broadly for the rest of our organization so they could understand how to bring the creative to life. And so when we developed that story and really just turned it over to our creative team, and Robin led that, Owen, who made the incredible video that rolled it out, Jaden's work, all of our designers who worked on it, because it wasn't just Jaden, and we just have great people who really understood what the story was and were able to build all of that collateral, all of that creative, all of that messaging around that one particular story. I think all of those elements coming together in the weeks leading up to the rollout, we really felt it could be something really special.
So under my umbrella of brand strategy, it's really managing all the different verticals that relate to the story that we're telling. That affects content, creative, copywriting, social. You're tying that invisible string across all of these kind of individual verticals to build this one cohesive story. We gathered in the locker room and we decided to kind of remix where we would have our brainstorming session.
And the meeting was really cool. Like, we did it in the Mercury locker room because when you're sitting there, it's just a reminder that eventually those lockers are going to be full of this jersey.
Because we wanted to just be like surrounded by the history that covered the walls in the locker room, and we wanted to feel the power of the team and the purple and orange that kind of shines there.
And players are going to put it on and wear it and represent the organization and wear that story, and fans are going to buy it because they see players in it. We have so many great resources and great people in this organization. We sat down and we gave them that story, right? You need to give some guidance and guardrails, like, this is the story, this is what we think it is.
And so we begun that by asking questions, and we said, what do you see when you look at this jersey?
What do you think is missing?
What do these colors represent to you?
What can we add to this? What would you as a fan want to know? What have you seen success with before?
And we really just threw everything out there. We got a whiteboard and we just wrote down vocabulary words, and we talked about what Phoenix means to us individually.
And then just took ideas. How do we bring this to life visually? What should the photography look like? What players should we use? How should we position the jersey? Where should we go in the market? Like, how do we bring all of these elements together? Being in there was it was a great reminder of sort of the gravity of what we were trying to do and the importance of it, and it came together really well. And so when Jaden first sort of interviewing to come over to the Mercury side, the projects we talked about were projects on this level. He showed us a deck that had probably 20 or 30 courts in it. And as we were looking at the courts, we said, well, what if this one had that, and what if that one had this? And he opened up his computer, and because he had already done it, because he had done 100 different versions of these courts. And so he starts scrolling through, and the room full of people just said, like, how many of these did you make? He said, I don't know, 100, couple hundred.
In terms of the significant design elements of the court, one thing you might notice is the gradient starting on the sideline wraps around to the keys and kind of leads into the court. That's pretty obvious. What you might not notice is a top view looking at the court. The gradient pattern actually makes an X, alluding to the X factor, something that the jersey is all about, representing our passionate fans. And if that's not direct enough, We also included home of the X Factor along the sidelines of the court, representing what this team is about, who they're playing for, so that every time our players step on the court, they know who they're fighting for, and every time the opponents step on the court, they know what they're up against.
That experience was such a cool part of this process because I think we took elements from a bunch of different ones and wound up settling on one that is just spectacular.
When we were going through our initial brainstorming of the jersey, we looked to break it down into 3 parts, and it was the people, the place, and the history. And those were the 3 pillars that when we'd enter each meeting, we wanted to make sure that's our North Star of what we're trying to achieve in the story that we're telling. And so to start with the people, it's the only jersey in the WNBA that is for our fan base, the X Factor, with that PHX word mark across the front. And that X Factor term was coined by Cheryl Miller from the original times of when the Phoenix Mercury were founded, and no other WNBA team has that. So to be able to lean into our passionate fans, #1 goal. I think part 2, when we think about the place and the desert and the heat, the sunrises and sunsets that exist in the valley are nowhere else. And then the history. We're one of only 3 original teams left in the WNBA based on location. And there's a lot of pride in being an original team. And so when we talk about the originals and the day ones and the X Factor being the backbone of this team, this jersey is for them. And this jersey is to represent them and this city.